REI is expensive. I don't think anyone would argue with that, but they do have their own line of hiking and backpacking gear that is slightly less expensive than everything else they sell. The question I have, is it any good? So I dropped a cool $2,000 on all REI branded gear to find out what's worth buying and what might be a waste of money. Feels like something you could get for $100 max at something like Walmart. So let's check it out. First, let me say that this video is not sponsored, and I bought all this gear with my own money. And some of these things you really need to avoid, but before we talk about that, let's talk about the good stuff, starting with this quilt. First of all, REI doesn't carry many quilts to begin with, so the fact that they even provide this is a huge plus in my mind. It's a pretty standard quilt with a zippered foot box that can convert from a lay flat quilt to a cinch foot box. It's got 2 pad straps to help keep it on the pad and minimize drafts, vertical baffles in the torso to keep the insulation from falling to the side, 850 fill power down, and it's lightweight, coming in at 1 pound, 6.3 ounces for a regular wide quilt. Nothing game changing or unique there, but there are a couple of features that I think make this quilt stand out. One, they have a variety of sizes to fit just about any body size. They have a regular wide, a long, and a long wide, with that last one suitable for people up to 6 foot 6 inches tall, with a shoulder girth of up to 71 inches. Also has this small little draft tube at the bottom that does a really good job of blocking drafts when you have the foot box cinched down. A lot of quilts like this leave a good sized hole that in colder weather can make your feet cold. And if you watch my most recent video about PFAS chemicals, all the DWR on the down and the shell is PFAS free. That's all great, but let's talk about price for a minute. All in all, this is a pretty standard quilt with standard features for a little bit less than most quilts. Its regular price is about $330, which is only about $20 to $30 cheaper than comparable quilts. But, and this is a big but, REI frequently puts this and all their gear on sale for 30% off, making this quilt just $230, and that price for this quilt is a steal. Be sure to check prices around Black Friday, Memorial Day, and Labor Day sales, and it's a good chance that you can find this and all the gear on this list pretty cheap. Next is the REI Helix sleeping pad. Let me say right off the bat that this is one of the most comfortable sleeping pads I have ever used. Seriously, most comfortable, or a close second to the Zenbivy Ultralight mattress, which makes sense because these pads are both very similar with deep quilted baffles. It's these deep baffles that in my experience makes a pad more comfortable because they have more give to relieve pressure points. The Helix is 3 inches thick, comes in about 1 pound 10 ounces for a 25-inch wide version, and has an R value of 4.9, which is good for all but the coldest conditions. On a regular day, the Helix is a little more affordable than most pads, coming in at $170, but once again, if you catch them on sale, you can get them for just $118, which is probably the best deal on a sleeping pad that you are going to find. I also picked up the REI Magma 850 down jacket. As the name suggests, it's a standard puffy jacket with 850 fill power down that comes in right around $250. And I struggled with this one a little bit. It's a pretty typical down jacket. It's not the lightest or the cheapest, but it's also not the most expensive. It's got generous sizing, which I like, but other than that, there's not much to say about it. There are certainly cheaper jackets out there that are just as good, like the Decathlon 4-class down jacket that is less than half the price for the same basic quality. The only difference is I don't like the way the Decathlon jackets fit. So if that's an issue for you like it is for me, this might be the next best affordable jacket, especially if you catch it on sale for $174. Then you have the only REI branded pack that I would buy, the Flash 50. That and the Flash 55, but you can only get it on pre-order right now because they're attempting to make it PFAS free. But until the 55 comes back, this is the next best thing. This is REI's attempt at an ultralight pack, and it mimics the standard features you find on just about any ultralight pack, like the roll top closure, 2 side pockets, center mesh pocket, and a total weight under 2 pounds. It's a really decent pack, with its best features being the generous padding on the shoulder straps, hip belt, and back. It's got a little bit of ventilation that you don't see on very many ultralight packs that will help in hotter temperatures, and it's not too expensive at $299, but it's a really good deal if you can find it on sale for $209. Now, before I get into the gear that I think you should avoid, I want to mention the REI Flexlite Air backpacking chair. I did a video a little over a year ago where I said this chair was uncomfortable and cheaply made. Since that time, the Nemo Moonlight Elite came out and showed me just how uncomfortable a chair can really be. With that revelation, the Flexlite seems much more tolerable, so I'm putting it here in between the good and the bad REI gear. My biggest complaint on the Flexlite is the positioning of the poles. To keep from infringing Helinox's patent, they ran the pole from front to back instead of side to side, which creates a sort of V shape that makes it feel kind of like you're sitting in a taco shell. But it's a truly minor inconvenience compared to the digging of the Moonlight Elite, and when it's on sale, the Flexlite Air is only $70, which is a pretty good deal for a 1-pound chair. Okay, now all the gear that I think you should avoid, starting with the REI Trail Hut 2 tent. Where do I even start with this thing? First of all, it's not dangerous. If you get it in spite of this review, the world's not going to come to an end and you're not going to die cold and afraid in the backcountry. It's mainly just not worth the money in my mind. Okay, honest impression of this tent. It feels cheap. It doesn't feel like something you buy at REI. It feels like something you could get for $100 max at something like Walmart. The quality, the craftsmanship, all of it just feels cheap. Come on, REI. This is a heavy tent, coming in at almost 6 pounds, fully packed from the store. When I think of heavy backpacking tents, I'm thinking of a 4-pound tent, and this is almost 2 pounds heavier. Part of that is the footprint. One of the things that bothers me about this tent, but some people will see it as a plus, it comes with its own footprint already attached to the tent. I've got a video all about how pointless footprints are, but even if you ditch the footprint, you're still looking at 5 pounds 9 ounces. And then you have the cheap details like no drawstring on the pole bag and the cheap J-hook stakes and the poor quality control. Okay, very first time that I pitched this tent, and both of the fly door zippers are in the middle of the zipper. It's really strange. To be fair, that zipper was fine once I moved it up to the top where it was supposed to be, but it still got me wondering, why wasn't it right from the factory? Now, I'm trying to keep in mind that this is REI's budget option at just $229 full price, but even so, I feel like there are tents just as good for less money on the market. It really feels like REI is just selling their name on this one, but maybe that's just me. Then you have this self-inflating AirRail sleeping pad. Okay, this self-inflating air mattress has been sitting here trying to self-inflate for about an hour. It's not even the first time I inflated it. I inflated it and left it inflated for a good 24 hours at home, and it's still not wanting to self-inflate. And because it's supposed to self-inflate, they didn't bother to include a pump stack like the Helix has, so either you need to bring a pump or blow this up with your mouth. Then once you have it blown up, it's incredibly thin at just barely 1.5 inches in the center. Not really ideal for the backpacking that I want to do. The reason this stood out to me in the first place are the side rails that on some pads I've used really help nestle you on the pad, but on the AirRail they're just too thick, making it feel like it's squeezing you into a smaller portion of the pad. And again, this is their budget option at just $115 full price, but to me you'd be much better off with the Helix when it's on sale. Then last on my list is this little $25 pillow. I was surprised when I first opened this up to find how lumpy the padding is. It felt like they just shoved whatever padding they had left over into a pillowcase. So much so that I went to look, and sure enough, that's exactly what they did. This is a scrap pillow that they're selling for $25. Now, I realize that that's not a ton of money and they're trying to minimize waste, which I think is commendable. I just think a pillow is too important when you want good sleep outdoors. If you care this little about your sleep, just stuff your jacket into a stuff sack and it'll be just as good without the weight or the cost. Okay, so that is the best and worst gear from REI, at least that I have tested. Did I miss something? Did I leave something out? Let me know down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and do all those other things. And as always, thanks for watching.